So, good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world. And welcome to another episode of Is It That Bad, where we take a look at an album that maybe got mixed reviews, or sometimes maybe it got good reviews, but we look at it like years later and we say, was it that good? Was it that bad? And we give it a rating. And for this episode, I'm joined by Chili from Live Listening Race. Chili, how are you?
Very good. Thank you very much for having me on the panel and happy Star Wars Day from Australia.
Oh, may the fourth
Yeah.
be with you.
May the fourth be with everyone.
Yeah. So, well, we're here still in May the 3rd, so we're in the past. So, so
It's all in
here
a
in
galaxy
the
far, far away.
yeah, it's a few hours away. It's 2 hours away for me.
There we
So
go.
we have JC Rock and Metal Reviews. JC, how are you?
Oh, good. Thanks.
And we have Nick Sino. Nick, how are you tonight?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. And today we're doing a pick by Chili. He requested this album, and it's Silverchair-Young Modern, their last album that was released back in 2007, nonetheless. So, since this is Chili's pick, Chili, give us a little bit of backstory about this album.
Certainly, I'll go a little bit further and give a bit of history on the band too. So, good day, you dull bludgers. Let's put this shrimp on the barbie here when we come to Silverchair and their album. Now, when we're going through Silverchair, this is a band that was originally called Innocent Criminals. I mean, it almost cries to Ben Harper and the band, the Innocent Criminals there, but that's way back in 92 odd. They released Frog Stomp 95, pretty much essentially becoming Australia's Nirvana. The band members were 13 at the time of recording that album, which is absolutely mind-blowing. They were very, very young in school, and they would in turn influence the Australian music scene in the 90s. Freak Show follows up and, of course, follows that style. Neon Ballroom changed it a bit and they, introduced a few more elements. But the sound shifted as Daniel Johns really struggled with anorexia nervosa, which is, of course, a very bad disease. Diorama obviously kicked off a few years after that, drops to High Anticipation, and really had a lot of fusion with the music they were offering. Now, Andrew Johns also got married shortly after this to Natalie Imbruglia. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the
I'm
artist.
torn.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
I'm
Yeah.
lying naked on
Yeah,
the floor.
you ruined my punchline. A fun little note there. She was on the TV show Neighbours in the 90s, which is the equivalent of Australia's Downtown Abbey, I guess, with a quasi-bogan cul-de-sac. This, interestingly enough, has launched other stars such as Kylie Minogue, Margot Robbie, Delta Goodrem, and both Liam and Chris Hemsworth. So I just found that intriguing. In the following years, side projects were created after Diorama, such as the drummer Ben forming Tamberlane and Daniel Johns also forming the Dissociatives, which is very electronically and samply, vastly different to Silverchair. In 2005, the band would reform and go on Wave Aid benefit gig, which was to raise money for the tsunami victims of the Boxing Day tsunami. A side note again for that one, but a great performance by the Australian supergroup The Rights, which was made up of band members from Grinspoon, Jet, Living End, Powderfinger, and Spiderbait, amongst others, doing a cover of the Easy Beats song Evie Parts 1, 2, and 3. And the Easy Beats are an Aussie pop rock group from the 60s and 70s. One of their band members was George Young, older brother to, of course, AC/DC's Malcolm and Angus Young. So just another one there. With renewed vigor after this, they turned their focus to recording a new album, which brings us to Straight Lines. And I guess you're going to ask me, what was my first impressions of the album?
Yeah, well, isn't the album called Young Modern? And
Sorry. Straight Lines is the single, which
yeah, and
the
I
lead
saw,
single.
I was reading this album won a lot of awards back in the day. So,
Oh yeah,
so what have we learned, kids? I think it's safe to say that Australians are fucking hot.
very true, very true.
Yeah, well, yeah, well, I don't know what happened to you, Sheila. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding,
I did
man.
something wrong there. I don't know. But
So,
I remember
so
when this single came out at the time, though. It was a massive single. Yes, it won a lot of awards. I was massively into Silverchair at the time, but I avoided this album like the plague because it wasn't the Silverchair I remember, damn you. So it was really odd.
Yeah.
So for the longest of times, I actually avoided this album
Okay.
until
Interesting.
until recently when I suggested it. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to discover this album for the first time, it may as well be in a discussion on is it that bad?
Yeah, no, good one. So yeah, you know the drill. So now we're gonna go to the first round where we give our first impressions. So obviously,
Mm,
since this was Chili's choice, we'll start. Obviously, round two, we'll pick three tracks that we think maybe are not as good, and the third round, we'll give it a thumbs up, thumbs sideways, or thumbs down. So Chili, give us your first impressions of Young Modern.
okay. Yes. So like I was saying before, I remember when this single came out back in 2006, 7 roughly. Um, Straight Lines, vastly different to, of course, what I was expecting from Silverchair. And I just did not like the single at all. And for that reason alone, I avoided listening to this album. I could have, for several times, I went down to my local library and it was always there on the shelf. I could have borrowed it any time and taken it with me. But because I was so invested in the Silverchair I knew from the 90s and, of course, with Diorama, I just said, nope, I don't want any slice of this, you know? And for the long time, I just avoided this record. I finally got around to listening to the album, and without giving too much away, I guess, I found it was definitely a lot better than I was expecting. I was expecting the bar to be down, down, down as far as our southern land, but no, it definitely was a better record than I thought or imagined. So first impressions were like that.
Nice. So, what about you, JC?
Well, I was a fan of Silverchair back when Frog Stomp came out.
Mm,
I had that album. I used to listen to it all the time. I liked them because they were a grunge band, but they were like a little heavier than a typical grunge band. Like they had some like heavy metal edge to their songs. So I had Frog Stomp. Freak Show, I think I bought that one as well. Because I went back and listened to all these. I think it was yesterday. The only 5 album. So that one I knew. Neon Ballroom, I never listened to before, but I think there was one song I recognized, probably one of the singles.
mm,
Diorama I heard for the first time, and then I listened to Young Modern, I think twice already. So I actually listened to Young Modern first. And my first impression is that it was completely different. Now, interesting, you say Straight Lines. Now, I know it was a big single. I guess it must have been popular in the US because I like when I heard Straight Lines, like the first thing I thought to myself is that like I know the song, I've heard it before, but
mm.
I didn't know it was Silverchair. I probably thought it was something like Coldplay or Savage Garden or one of those bands. Like I'm sure I heard it on the radio, but if I had known it was Silverchair, I would have made the connection. But
Don't sully their
that's
name
so
with Coldplay.
yeah. So that's so I knew. But the other ones, it was a completely different sound. I heard a lot of influence from like the Beatles,
Mm,
lots of a little bit of like Radiohead,
yeah.
Muse, Queen, The Strokes. Those are some of the bands I'm putting down in my notes. So it was a completely different sound, and I guess that's all I'll say. It was for now because I want to save my opinion until the end, but. Definitely unexpected for me. Yeah.
Yeah, nice, JC. So, what about you, Nick?
Well, I grew up with Silverchair. They were definitely one of my favorite bands when I was in high school. So, right from Frog Stomp through to Freak Show, Neon Ballroom was a huge record for me when I was in high school. And I remember my friends and I, we first started our first band. We were around 14, 15 years old, and I remember Silverchair was one of those bands that we really looked up to because they were so young when they started. It gave young musicians a lot of hope that hey, if they can do it, like we could be a big band when we're 15. And I know Silverchair kind of felt uncomfortable as they got older. They look back on those first few records and maybe were a little bit embarrassed by them because they were thinking we made those records when we were so young. So maybe it doesn't live up to what they were trying to do on this stuff. And I kind of lost track of Silverchair on Diorama. I remember listening to that record, not really enjoying it. And I remember when Young Modern came out in 2007, and I was a Silverchair fan. So I remember listening to it at the time and not being a huge fan of it at the time. And then getting into it, listening to it this time around, not really being into it at all again this many years later. And I get that the band, they wanted to move beyond just being Nirvana wannabes. They wanted to do more than just be compared to those grunge bands. And I understand their need to kind of spread their wings musically, but for me it wasn't quite there. They didn't quite stick the landing. And again, I'll save my thoughts for later on as well. But I didn't enjoy this record as much as I wanted it to. I wanted to feel different about it after all these years, but I kind of felt the same.
Okay, yeah. So my first impression, I actually listened to this when it came out, but I gotta be honest, the only song that I remember was Straight Lines. But I actually like
Sorry.
that song. I thought it's a, it's a catchy song. Yes, it's different from the Silverchair that it started, but come on, like when you're like when you're so young, like it's gonna change, like what the like way they're doing. They started changing with Neon Ballroom, but yeah, this is their most different album musically. I heard the Beatles. I heard Queen. I also heard a song that reminded me of David Bowie too, in some of the tracks. But yeah, I think this is more of a record that maybe it's named Silverchair, but was it? It sounded more like it should have been like a Daniel Johns like solo record, in my opinion, instead of putting the Silverchair. Like, yeah, you could have a few different songs, but have that Silverchair sound, because Diorama, even though it's different, it still sounded like Silverchair in a way.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are my initial thoughts. I hadn't listened to this in years until Chili said, listen. I'm like, oh my God, I haven't listened to this album in such a long time. So I only remember one song. So it's like, it almost was like listening to something brand new. But I think my musical taste or knowledge has changed from 2007 to 2024. So yeah, those are my initial thoughts. So now we're going to round two, where we're gonna pick some tracks that we maybe think are the weakest. So Shili, what tracks did you pick and why?
All right. I've limited myself to 3. So first I'm going to say is if you keep losing sleep, this is just sounding like a bad acid trip. It's got that eclectic 60s psychedelic rock sound, like the band are trying to emulate the Beatles on Sgt. Pepper's or something like that. This song just tried to be an inferior version of that with much more orchestral mashing, and it just becomes a bit overbearing to the point of, I just want to skip this song. Now, a bit of insight into at least my train of thought here, but I've always thought the Beatles were extremely overrated. So I just don't like any connection between
You
the
know
Beatles.
what? My girlfriend would hug you right now, because she says that to me all the time, that the Beatles are overrated. So she'll be delighted when I tell her, hey, Sheila thinks just like you.
I know there are many more out there. I know they are, but they always get silenced. You're like, oh my God, yeah. So the Beatles are overrated. Yeah, I know. Keyboard Warriors attacking me right this moment, but yeah, it's I don't know. I just didn't enjoy this song. I just found it losing myself. I just didn't have the patience to listen to a 4-minute track of just orchestral blaring in my ears. So yes, I'll be skipping that one. All Across the World as well. Just a classic closer track, Fate. I forget it exists, to be honest, when it comes to playing this record, much kind of like this album. But also the return of the goddamn orchestra. God damn it, I really hate this. And I wonder if half the budget was just for the symphony alone, or if they got them on tick under the promise to let them into a Silverchair gig in the future. I don't know, but that's kind of questions I would raise. Meh, it's a pretty meh song. Anyway, Straight Lines is my other pick. Now, I'm going to be a bit savage here, but straight up, it can eat a bag of dicks. I hate this song. It made me want to vomit back in the day every time I heard it, and I think I am having an aversion therapy flashback every time I hear those stupid staccato synth notes. I just really hate that intro. It takes... Dun, 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 dun. Oh my God, I'm getting Vietnam flashbacks.
So
It takes too long. Sorry.
I wonder if Straight Lines is about like him being drunk and trying to walk a straight line.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe it has to do something else. Maybe it's drugs. I don't.
Yeah, I don't know.
Welcome to Sydney. But yeah, look, I mean, it takes too long to build up to what is essentially an additional. Sorry, it takes too long to build up to what is an essentially an addition with the drum bass kick on every beat with no variation. If the addition of a basic drum beat wasn't enough to get you half-mast, then you have the inclusion of what sounds like a guitar teacher playing a few chords on a slow enough pace for even my hungover mind with no coffee in the morning to just groan about its pacing. Now, we also get the return of the goddamn orchestra. I want to make this plain right up front. I don't mind orchestra arrangements and songs. Diorama was a really good album and it had, a fair bit of orchestral arrangements. But in this instance, and I just can't do it. No, I just can't. And it worked, it worked well for the last two singles they did, which were, one was Emotion Sickness from Neon Ballroom, and what was
Yeah,
it?
that's a great track.
And Greatest View, I think, from Diorama. Both of them had really well, orchestrated movements. But I guess, when it comes to this, instead it feels about as overbearing as, say, the Rolling Stones coverage on Motley Crue and their shithouse live performances. I don't know what I've written here, but yeah, we get it. Like they're past their prime, but this is the fifth time you post in a story. Sorry, I don't know what I've written there. Forget about that point. But anyway, it's just orchestral continuously, but Straight Lines is such a slow paced song. And it's the vocals as well that that Daniel ooh, ooh. And I think that was the note. Yeah, just that vocal does my head in, and that's the point I was trying to make about Motley Crue, because obviously they unplug his vocals during performances. Maybe they could have done the same for Daniel Johns. Those are my three picks.
Nice,
Tell us how you really feel.
You didn't hold back. So
No.
So what about you, JC? What tracks did you pick?
Okay, I picked one that he mentioned already. If You Keep Losing Sleep. I just thought it was very kind of strange. I put like a mixture of like the Beatles, Faith No More, and Queen. It was like those were like the three bands that made me think of it. But it was just very over the top theatrical, like one of those like art rock songs. So for me, I chose that one. Then I chose The Man That Knew Too Much. It was like an indie rock song. I read like comments, people compared it to like the band Blur. So I guess that's what it sounded like. It was a little bit maybe like funky, a little progressive, experimental, but it was, wasn't one of the stronger tracks. And my last one is Insomnia. Another one that's just strange, theatrical, another one where they're going for that like late Beatles like type of sound. It's kind of like an upbeat song, but I thought it was just kind of strange. It was just different, and I think it just wasn't one of the stronger songs. So that's all. Those are my three picks. Yeah.
Nice. What about you, Nick?
Well, I hate to pile on, but I'm also going to say If You Keep Losing Sleep, because that song, I think Daniel Johns is a great singer, a great vocalist, but man, like,
Yeah.
it's like, sounds like you're on some sort of demented carnival ride. I couldn't stand it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
when I was listening to it, it just was grating on my nerves. And the thing about these songs in general is that they're trying to do these different things with the melodies, and every song's taking these unconventional turns. It kind of goes here when you think it's going to go there, and they don't really do anything by the book on this record, but then it doesn't really amount to anything. There's nothing memorable about any of these melodies, and that song grates on my nerves. The other one that really bothered me was Those Thieving Birds Part 1 into Strange Behavior and Those Thieving Birds Part 2. If you're going to do a 7-minute song, you have to at least make it interesting. And this one is just not interesting at all. That opening bit and then the ending bit, basically Those Thieving Birds part of it is really, really annoying to me. That was just not an enjoyable listen. And when you have a 7.5-minute song, it really starts to feel like homework when you're like, oh man, just
Dude,
finish.
you need to listen to Dream Theater, man.
Yeah, I gotta listen to more Tool, Dream Theater, some more extended jams. But But and then the other song that I didn't really enjoy on this one was called Mind Reader. When you think about Silverchair, especially those first three records, they're such a great guitar band. There's so many great riffs on there, and Daniel Johns was always really able to do something really cool with his guitar stuff on those first three records. And then with this one, it started a little bit with a cool guitar riff, maybe some cool bass and drums on there, but then it totally lost me. I had some high hopes on this track, and then ended up being completely disappointed by that track and pretty much the rest of the album. So I'm gonna say that was my last least favorite track on this record.
Nice. So that leaves me, and we're gonna go 4 for 4. If you keep losing sleep, I also picked that one because it's a very annoying sound. The song itself, it's annoying as hell. Like, if you keep losing sleep, and I saw like the video, and Daniel Johns is like dancing like that, and he looks all weird.
There was a video for it?
I think in Spotify it looks like he's dancing something like that to that song. So yeah, it's a song like, yeah, you would lose some sleep listening to this track because it's very annoying, and
You get insomnia.
it really annoyed me to an extent. I actually the single I enjoyed, even with the woo woo. Chili, like,
Why?
I'm gonna put that for you to sleep. You're trying to sleep, and you'll be like, "Ooh."
I'm just gonna re-record it with my vocals instead. Shut up! Shut up!
So, so I think I also the feeding birds. I also would pick it because this is so arty fartsy. It's like, okay, we get it. You're trying to be. I'm like, I'm so deep with these thieving birds. First of all, what the fuck is a thieving bird?
I was thinking that too.
I was like,
it's like a crow.
I was like listening to this and thinking of like, there's these birds and they're trying to mock me. They're like, we're gonna get you because you're feeding birds, and it's just too long, and it's. They're trying to be all like I don't know, like grandiose, and it's frankly it's corny. It's a very long corny song that should it's just too long. Even the title, it's long. It's like, just read at this fucking title of this song. It's Feeding Birds Part 1, Strange Behavior, Those Feeding Birds Part 2. I'm like, oh my God. Like I don't give a shit about your feeding birds. So the other song I'm picking a different one. I'm picking Waiting All Day. I just thought it was like, I don't know, like it just said like the same chorus over and over. I'm like, waiting all day on you, wait. Okay, he's waiting all day. So yeah, but I think that we all pick one song in particular. So yeah, like, so those are the songs. So now we're going for the for the last round where we give a thumbs up, thumbs sideways, or thumbs down. So Chili, your final thoughts on this one?
I just want to quickly shout out that I love Thieving Birds, and I thought it was a good track. And just a reference, like in Australia, like many things, animals will kill you, and magpies are bloody dangerous in Australia. They'll swoop you down and hunt you. But anyway, that aside, for years I really swore off this band. I swore off Silverchair because of this album. I just never wanted any part of it. It's like a shadow of themselves, this record. They're just completely different. Like you've all said before, this is a band that came from Frog Stomp, heavy, hard-hitting riffs, to now and Young Modern with this artsy Beatles kind of collection of songs. It's weird. It's just, it's really
Arty
weird.
farty.
Arty farty, yeah, that's it. It was just very unusual. Yeah, they were leaning into that over the last couple of records, from Neon Ballroom and Diorama. But the thing that drew them back into it was they still had the big riffs throughout each of those albums, which is lacking here. There is nothing in the way of Andrew Johns' loud, crunchy guitars. It's just dialed down, it's nothingness. And I think that's the massive thing that really just shuns Silverchair listeners. away from this record is that yeah, you can still have those orchestral arrangements and you can still make them sound amazing because by contrast on Diorama in particular, you had those huge riffs.
Across the
And
Night is a great track.
across the night, there was a few other songs there. You know,
The
I
Greatest
think
View.
Diorama, the greatest view. Look, ignoring the singles, I guess you know too much. Love Your Life was another one, and The Lever was a really heavy song. World Upon Your Shoulders, you know, One Way Mule, all those songs, really good tracks, and that was actually my first Silverchair album as well. So for me, that was my introduction, and then I discovered Frog Stomp and went backwards. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, this album is intriguing because I guess the story of Daniel Johns, it's like the story, well, the band himself is the story of Daniel Johns' mind throughout the entire years. He suffered with all these mental issues and stuff, and you can hear that throughout the records. When you come forward to this moment in time, though, he's kind of like past all of his issues. He's overcome. Well, I'm not going to say all his issues. He still has many issues, but you know, back in the day, he had anxiety issues. He had anorexia nervosa, all this stuff. But coming into 2007, it's like he kind of overcame these things, and he's no longer a tragic artist, maybe. And I think that's what's missing from this record. He's come to terms with himself, and you know, there's not much pain compared to the other records. So, you know, when you, it sounds really weird, but without that tormented artist, yeah, I want my artist to be tormented and on heroin, okay? But, you know, so, but yeah, with this record, it's like he's not a tormented artist. He's not doing anything, you know, heavy stuff. He came out of the dissociatives just a few years prior, which many would cite as the reason it changed.
Because
And
he's
even
doing
moving,
woo.
yeah, he's doing the woo and you know going into that. And I think that it's definitely leaned far away from his earlier efforts. But I will say, despite the fact that I came into this record saying I thought this was going to be an absolute dog shit, you know, in a bag, lit on fire type of record, um, no, I found it actually decent. The first track was pretty cool. I thought, you know, there was that one, Young Modern Station. I thought that was a good song. I think it was Reflections of a Sound, maybe, but Thieving Birds is another one. You know, it's a pass. Look, it's a pass for me. I dead set thought when I announced this I was going to be given a thumbs down, but no. I mean, compared to his future stuff, that's completely.
Oh yeah.
Which,
He went full woo.
oh no, he went beyond that. I think I made the comparison in my notes. I'm not really. It's like Justin Timberlake meets Maroon 5 in his solo material.
Oh yeah.
You
So
know,
you give
and
him the
yeah,
sideways.
I give it the sideways. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Like, so what about you, JC?
Like I said, it was completely different, and I hadn't really listened to Silverchair in a really long time. Like I said, I listened to the first two albums. The other two after that, I listened to, I think, for the first time just this week. So I was just completely had forgotten about this band other than the first two albums. So I went into it as if they're kind of like a new band, and
Pretty much.
you know, despite some of the songs that you know we picked, well, you know, all of us picked "If You Keep Losing Sleep," but otherwise, I thought there was some pretty good stuff. I think "Straight Lines" is a good song. It's catchy. I don't have any problem with that. "Young
So
Modern
you like the
Station's" not too bad.
woo?
Yeah.
I'm
I
gonna
like
get chewed out.
I like the Thieving Birds like two-part
Yes.
song. It was like it reminded me of like that like 70s like Supertramp, Electric Light Orchestra, like
Oh.
that, like those like big like prog rock bands. So I found a lot of like you know, classic rock influence on this album. But then the other songs like Mind Reader, that was kind of like garage rock, it was like the Strokes. The song "Low," that one reminded me of something from like a John Lennon solo album. That's what I put in my notes. It reminded me just of that. And other songs reminded me of a lot of influence from the Beatles and Queen, and I like all that stuff. So this might be surprising. I'm going thumbs up with it. Yeah. I thought it's good enough to get a thumbs
Nice.
up. I thought there was some
Yeah.
good stuff here. Yeah.
Nice. What about you, Nick?
I'm gonna go a full thumbs down
Ooh.
on Young Modern from Silverchair. Too many oohs on this album. This album is annoying. It's not catchy. It's not interesting at all. Like I really felt this was such a hard listen to get through. Usually with most albums, I can find something to like about it, but with this one, it
Nick,
was
you're
really
being
hard
so
to find.
negative.
I know.
First
Usually
Alien
that's the
Ant
thing.
Farm, and now this.
Yeah, I know. I'm the guy who loves it. That's the thing. And then another thing is I'm always the person who's championing bands when they spread their musical wings and they experiment and they do new things, because I hate when people say, "Oh, I wish this band sounded like their first album," because they're never going to sound like that first album. It's a moment in time. Bands evolve, they do different things, but then at the same time, if you're going to evolve, it still has to be good. And I felt like it was an evolution, but wasn't necessarily a good evolution. I wish they would have retained a little bit more of what they had done on previous records, which isn't usually what I say. I'm usually the person who just loves everything, and so I really found this tough to get through. So I'm gonna have to say for Silverchair-Young Modern, it's a thumbs down for me, unfortunately.
Nice. So so that leaves me. So yeah, this is an album that there's a good point. It was their last album, and I think it was their last album because I was thinking that maybe Daniel was the one that wanted to do this artsy fartsy, and the other two guys are like, "God damn it, we just want to fucking rock."
Oh yeah.
And you're
Yeah,
like,
they do.
"No," and yes, but Nick, the feeding birds are going to get you. But to me, there's some experimentation that I like from this album. Yes, it's a weird record as a Silverchair record, but actually there's stuff in here that I enjoyed. I enjoyed the Mind Reader song, the first song, the Young Modern, the interview's over. Like I'm like, what interview? I'm like, I'm
This is
like,
just starting.
I'm like, you just started this damn fucking record. What do you mean it's over? Like, so, and I think Daniel Johns is a good vocalist.
Yeah.
But when I was reading that this won so many awards, it like was like the best rock record of the
Nah, it's a
Australia.
slow year.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
I was gonna say
I'm,
slow year.
I'm like, I don't think so. You know, it's not the
No.
worst thing I ever heard. So I was struggling a bit with this record, with what to rate it. I didn't hate it as much as Nick, but also I didn't love it like JC. So I'm quite indifferent to it. So I'm giving it a thumb sideways. I'm like, there's some stuff here I like, but there's some stuff like no. So this album is slightly saved.
Saved by
So
the Bell.
Saved by the Bell. I really thought that Chile was gonna give it a thumbs down after.
I thought I was.
Yeah, but you were like, I'm gonna give it a thumbs down. You heard like a Daniel Jones next to you going like, "Ooh."
I think I have to be careful because they only live about an hour and a half away from me. They'll watch this video and they'll come and hunt me down.
Yeah, but yeah, I do think if I had to rank their discography, this would be in the bottom down of the.
Really? Not better than Frog Stomp? Are you sure?
Yes, it's not better. It's not. I'm sorry, it's not better than Frog Stomp.
Oh.
But
You could pretty much rank them just from 1 to 5, like 1 to 5, and like that you'd be done, pretty much. Well, no, maybe Neon Ballroom at the top, but Rock Star.
actually, Neon Ballroom is my favorite. I think it's their best album, in my opinion.
Okay.
Because because Neon Ballroom has some of the edginess of the first two albums, but also it's a more mature record. And I think Diorama is pretty good, but I still remember more songs from Neon Ballroom. So to me, that's my favorite album from them. Yeah.
Frog Stomp. Frog Stomp all the way.
Frog Song when I was like younger, but now that I'm older, I think that one. So
There was one more thing I forgot to mention about this, which is Straight Lines, the song I love so much. It also it dominated the numbers so high. Israel's Son from Frog Stomp was like their biggest single, and I think it was like the biggest single in Australia. And then Straight Lines comes along and knocks it off the spot. Why Straight Lines? Why?
Yeah, well, that things happen. So yeah, we want to know from you, Couchers, What do you think of Silverchair-Young Modern? What would you rate it? Like, do you do you like the feeding birds? And also, like, I know that Chili went out on a limb and said that the Beatles are kind of overrated, but you know what? I also think so.
I have to get off this call, guys. If this is the way the conversation's going to go.
Is this that bad? Abbey Road.
No.
No. I have that album on vinyl. That's their best one. So yeah, no, but yeah, but so Nick is like, no, like damn you. So
I will
we wanna know from
convince you they're amazing.
Yeah, like maybe we'll have to do like a video, like Nick convinces us. So
Yeah, you got to have
Totally.
all the points.
all the points, like this is because, and we'll be like, okay.
Get
So,
a
but yeah, we
chalkboard
want
out
to
and
know.
everything.
Yeah, we want to know from you guys what do you think of Silverchair-Young Modern. Comment down below. And so coming up next week for the channel, we're going to talk about the new 6 Feet Under record. So that will be next week. So I want to thank my guests for today. I was going to say my subscribers, but they're subscribed too. So yeah. So I want to thank Chili from Live Listening Erased for, first of all, for making me listen to this album again, because I really hadn't forgotten about it. And so subscribe to his channel. He just hit the 900 mark. So he's close to the 1,000, and he's got a great show with Live Listening Erased. One time, Nick will have to do a Live Listening Erased with us.
Ooh. Oh yeah, yeah, with
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Beatles.
With just pick Beatles albums.
Oh, that'd be pain. That'd be a painful one.
No, that would be yeah. So subscribe to Shaylee from Live Listening Race, and JC Rock and Metal Reviews. He does ranking, album reviews, so subscribe to him as well. And finally, Nick Zeno, he does rock reviews from albums. And next week I'm gonna be on his channel, and we're gonna talk about the new Kings of Leon record.
Oh, nice.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. So we'll talk about that. And if you haven't, please subscribe to my channel. You know, I have more content, interviews, Is It That Bad, and album reviews. So until next time, people, this is Hector, the Shield Dude on a couch. And I'll see you all next time on another episode of Is It That Bad? Thank you and goodbye.
Bye-bye.